According to the movies, cowboys spent their lives worrying about gunfights and outlaws. But most working cowboys had far more immediate concerns. A horse stepping in a prairie dog hole at full speed. A herd exploding into a nighttime stampede. A river rising too fast to cross back over. A lightning storm rolling across the plains after midnight. Or waking up in a blizzard and realizing half the cattle were gone. The truth is, most cowboys weren't afraid of looking weak. They were afraid of nature, of weather, of distance, of isolation, of things bigger than them that they could not negotiate with. And maybe that's why the real cowboy deserves more respect than the Hollywood version. Because courage on the frontier was usually quieter than the movies made it look. It often looked like saddling up anyways, even when you knew exactly what could go wrong. Howdy, Chip Schweiger here. Welcome to another edition of Way Out West, where the stories of the American West are told, cowboy wisdom is earned, and the legacy of the American cowboy still rides on. Today on the show, we're talking about what cowboys were really afraid of. Not movie villains, not dramatic saloon shootouts, but the real dangers that haunted cattle drives, ranch camps, lonely trails, and open range country. Because if you read the old trail journals, if you listen carefully to the stories left behind by men like Teddy Blue Abbott and Charlie Siringo and Nat Love, Andy Adams, you begin to notice something. The things they feared the most were usually practical, sudden, and deadly. And many of those fears still ride alongside modern cowboys today. After the episode, check out the show notes at wayoutwestpod.com/cowboy fears. Welcome back. There's an old truth from cattle country. A calm herd can become chaos in seconds, especially at night. So imagine this. You're 20 years old, half asleep in the saddle during night guard, and miles from town, miles from shelter. The prairie stretching black in every direction. Then you see lightning far off on the horizon. Not one strike, hundreds. The wind shifts. The horses feel it first. They get nervous beneath you. Their ears twitch, their muscles tighten, then the thunder arrives. Low at first, then violent. The rain starts coming sideways, and somewhere in that darkness, one steer breaks. Then another, then suddenly 10,000 pounds of frightened cattle begin to move all at once. That was terror to a trail cowboy. A stampede could kill men, kill horses, scatter cattle for miles, and destroy months of work overnight. Teddy Blue Abbott wrote about storms rolling over the plains like the end of the world. And many cowboys talked about singing to cattle during the storms. Not because it sounded romantic, but because steady noise sometimes helped keep a herd calm. Andy Adams described night guards circling herds hour after hour while thunder rolled across the prairie. And there's something important modern people often miss. These men were exposed to the weather, completely. No insulated truck, no weather radar, no sturdy house nearby. Just a slicker, a saddle, and open country. The myth survived, but the reality still matters. Cowboys respected storms because storms killed people. And honestly, that respect never disappeared. Talk to ranchers today, many will tell you lightning still unnerves horses, stampedes still happen, and weather can still humble anybody who thinks they're in control. People unfamiliar with the West often imagine endless grasslands, but cowboys understood something better than most Americans. Water is life, and the lack of it can turn dangerous fast. On trail drives, water determined routes. It determined camp locations. It determined whether cattle stayed healthy, and sometimes whether men survived at all. Charlie Siringo wrote about dry stretches where cattle bawled from thirst and cowboys worried constantly about the next reliable water source. Nat Love described brutal heat and dust on long drives across Western country. Not cinematic dust, real dust. Dust in your nose, dust in your teeth, dust coating your bedroll and food and lungs. A man could survive discomfort, but a herd without water became desperate, and desperate cattle become unpredictable. Then there were the rivers. Hollywood often portrays river crossings as exciting little scenes. Real cowboys dreaded them. Strong currents could sweep cattle away. Mud could trap horses, and a rider thrown into a river crossing in heavy gear might not come back at all. The Platte, the Red River, the Brazos, the Arkansas, crossings became legendary because they were dangerous. One mistake could cost lives, and that tells you something. Most cowboy fears weren't imaginary, they were earned. Cowboys depended on horses the way sailors depended on ships. And when something happened to your horse, everything changed. A horse falling could crush a rider. A wreck during roping could break bones instantly. A bad step in rocky country could leave a man stranded miles from help. The old memoirs are full of injuries modern people barely ever think about. Broken collarbones, crushed legs, concussions, gunshot wounds from accidents, and infections from minor cuts. And perhaps most frightening of all, getting hurt far away from medical care. Today, a ranch hand might carry a satellite phone. There may be medevac access somewhere within reach. But isolation still exists across parts of the American West. And in the 19th century, isolation was absolute. If a cowboy got badly injured on the trail, the outcome often depended on luck or grit, or whether somebody could get help in time. Teddy Blue Abbott once described men simply enduring pain because there wasn't much else to do. And many frontier cowboys understood a reality that modern people rarely face. A small problem could become fatal. And that's one reason experienced cowboys tended to be cautious. Not timid, not weak, careful. Good horsemen survive by thinking ahead. The best cowboys usually weren't reckless men looking for danger. They were observant men trying to avoid it. People often associate cowboy life with heat, but winter terrified ranchers across the northern plains, especially after the great blizzards of the 1880s. The winter of 1886 and 1887 became legendary across cattle country. Temperatures collapsed, snow buried the plains, and cattle drifted with storms until they piled against fences and froze. Thousands upon thousands of head died. Entire ranching operations disappeared, and cowboys suffered too. Men got lost in the whiteouts, horses froze, supply lines vanished. One rancher later described cattle scattering like driftwood after a flood. What people often miss is the frontier was not conquered in a straight line. Nature pushed back constantly, and winter remained one of its most brutal weapons. Even now, modern ranchers still fear blizzards, calving season storms, ice, power outages, roads disappearing under storm. The tools changed, the vulnerability didn't. A cowboy with a diesel truck and smartphone still answers to the weather. Always has, always will. One of the strangest fears cowboys talked about was simply becoming disoriented. The plains could play tricks on people. Storms erased landmarks, dust reduced visibility, snow covered trails. And in certain country, every direction looked exactly the same. Men got lost, sometimes permanently. And then there was the fire. Range fires moved fast through dry grass. Driven by wind, flames could outrun horses in bad conditions. Cowboys fought fire with whatever they had: wet sacks, shovels, backfires, raw determination. Because if the grass burned, winter feed disappeared, livelihood disappeared, and sometimes entire communities suffered. And hanging over all of this was a quieter fear: loneliness, distance, that knowledge that help may be very far away. And that reality still exists in parts of ranch country today. There are places in the American West still where you can ride for hours and see nobody. Places where weather changes quickly, places where self-reliance still matters. Maybe that's why cowboy culture continues to resonate with people. Not because it was glamorous, but because it required competence, responsibility, calm under pressure. The movies taught generations of people that cowboys proved courage by facing gunfighters. But the real West usually demanded a different kind of bravery. The bravery to ride into a lightning storm because cattle needed watching. The bravery to cross a dangerous river because the herd had to keep moving. The bravery to keep working after injury, after exhaustion, after loss, and maybe most importantly, the bravery to respect danger without being ruled by it. Because fear itself wasn't weakness to working cowboys. Ignoring danger was weakness. Experience taught caution, wisdom, preparation. That's why old hands paid attention to clouds, to horses acting nervous, to changing wind, to the smell of rain or smoke. They understood the land could turn dangerous very quickly. The truth is, the best cowboys were often the most careful men in the outfit. Not because they lacked courage, but because they understood consequences. And maybe that's the lesson still worth carrying forward today. Courage was never the absence of fear. It was saddling up, it was doing the work, and it was riding into uncertainty, even when you knew exactly what could go wrong. Okay, before we ride out today, we've got just one more thing. Yep, that distinctive call from Buster the Bull means it's time again for our cowboy glossary term of the week. And this week's term is nighthawk. So a nighthawk is a cowboy assigned to ride night guard and watch cattle after dark, especially during trail drives. Now, a good nighthawk needed patience, alertness, and a calm horse, because when storms rolled in, he was often the first man standing between a quiet herd and absolute chaos. Well, that's all for this week's episode, and thanks for riding with me here way out west. If you've enjoyed this journey through history, share it with a friend. That way, we reach more fans of the American West. And if you're so inclined, I'd appreciate it if you'd rate us or review us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, this is Chip Schweiger reminding you that the stories of the American West are more than mythology. They're lessons in resilience, in responsibility, and in respecting forces bigger than ourselves. We'll see you down the road.